Welcome again. On this video tutorial, we're going to look at how to install and set up Active Directory Domain Controller on Windows Server 2019. So here we have a virtual machine which is running Windows Server 2019, and I have got the static IP address configured on this machine. As you can see here, if you go to the Ethernet configurations, I have got an IP address configured. So there's a static IP address configured, and you can see the DNS is given as same host IP address because once I install the Active Directory, I'm going to have the DNS services on the same machine itself. So the IP address has been already configured, and I've just renamed this machine to reflect as domain controller. So you can see it's a domain controller. It's in work group as of now with the IP address. So let's go and install the Active Directory services. For us to install, as usual, go to add roles and features. It's a role-based features, and going to install on the same server here. Right, so the service that we're going to install, Active Directory Domain Services. Of course, these are the features that it's required to install Active Directory Domain Services. Click yes, and you can see I can install the DNS services with that. Let's go move on to the next one. I can tick this one. Sometimes it might fail, so I'm going to just leave this one. If in case we need to install, then we can come back and install through a PowerShell command, right? So I'll leave that as default. Moving to the next, there's no Azure services, so I'm going to go to the next one. DNS has been configured and let's restart the server if required. Continue. So now it's installing the Active Directory services. Keep in mind, we are not going to promote this until we complete the installation. So the installation is going on. So once it's succeeded, we would see a small exclamation mark in this notification area. So once we see the notification, we will click on that notification, and then we will promote this work group computer to a domain controller, right? So we need to promote this as a domain controller. So just it's almost about to finish the installation. Let's wait. Yep, it's all installed. Right here we can see promote, as well as here we have the option to promote, right? So you can use either this option or the other option, right? So I'll use to click here, close, and then I'll go back and promote this as a domain controller, right? Here we go. The domain controller configuration wizard is here. So there are three options available: add a domain controller to an existing domain, or add a domain to an existing forest, or you can create a completely new forest. So in a domain controller hierarchy, the forest is the highest hierarchical group. From the forest, we can create multiple domains, or from the domains we can create multiple subdomains. So since there is no additional domain controllers or any forest available, so I'm going to create my first forest here. So if you pick this option, add a domain controller to an existing domain, so you might need to have another forest, and that forest you will have a domain controller. You can provide the domain name here, and you can continue to do that. Or you can create a child domain here. So there's an option to create a child domain. So you can create a child domain. So forest becomes tree, and then from the tree we will have domains, right? So you can create child domain, or you can create the complete new forest. So I'm going to create a forest.com.au. So that's my forest name. That's the root domain name. faceit.net.com.au. Click next. So it's trying to find out the domain name and make sure that everything is okay. Here we go. And here we have the option to select the functional level. This is important if your system or if your network has got anything running on Windows Server 2016. You need to make sure to leave it 2016. If you have anything Windows 2012, then you have to use Windows 2012. So this is where the forest functional level and domain functional level. So if you choose 2016, and if you have got already a Windows 2012, then the 12 will not be able to work with this 2019 domain controller. So you need to be very careful to select this option. And then we have to provide a password here. This is to uninstall the DNS services. In case if you need to uninstall or depromote this back to a normal machine, then you have to use this password to remove that. So type the directory service restore mode password, right, to restore it. DNS delegation is already there, so we're going to move on to the next, and it will find the NetBIOS name. So NetBIOS names is sort of a DNS names. Remember, DNS and NetBIOS names are quite similar. You don't technically find many difference between DNS and NetBIOS names. DNS is based on TCP/IP concept, whereas NetBIOS is going to work with, which is WINS, right? NetBIOS is what we call it another way, WINS services, right? So it picks the DNS name. Next. So that FACEIT.net from the domain name, right? By default, the location where it stores the Active Directory database and the log files and everything under C drive windows. But for the best practice, if you have got another drive, keep it in another place. So in case if anything goes wrong, you can just recover from that, right? But since it's my testing environment, I'm going to leave it to the local default path. Click next. Next. Right, it's going to check for prerequisites, and I know that it's going to fail. The reason, if you look at it here, it says the password for the administrator user is not being configured, or it's not secure. So what we have to do is we have to set the password. So go to the computer configuration, right? So if you go to the computer management, you can pick local users, groups, administrator, reset the password. So give a strong password based on the password policy. So I have a default password policy which required minimum 8 characters and capital letter, simple letter, number, and a special character. Yep, I did. Let's run again. This time it should come back and with a green tick says all good. So it's checking. Yep, all good. Click install. Now the service is installing, right? Which means Active Directory domain services are configuring to promote this machine from a work group to a domain controller. So you can see it's going to create group policies. It's going to install and maintain a DNS forward lookup zone, and it will do all these changes, right? So let's wait for that to happen. Until that, so it might take a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. So let's wait until we finish this installation part, right? Once it's done, we will see the result, whether it's a success or fail. Right, we can see the service has been successfully installed and it's restarting the system, right? So once it restarted, we can see the login prompt would be changed. You're not going to see anymore the local user login. You're going to see a domain user login. So preparing the first login as a domain administrator or domain user. Yep, it's applying the configuration computer settings to convert from work group to a domain controller. So once that's done, we will see the login prompt. I'm going to pause the video. Right, so you can see it's done. So let's go login, and you can see now the login prompt has changed. I'm not going to log in as a user. I'm going to log in as the administrator, right? So it's, you can see it's signing into the domain. So I can just log in. Right, now this is your domain controller. So let's verify all the services are ready and the system is ready to use as a domain controller. So you can see here, this is now faceit.net, uh, facetnet.com.au, and it is now a domain. And also we can see, if you click here, we can see the Active Directory services installed, and also DNS services is all installed, right? Remember, when we install, we pick the DNS services, and we can see the forward lookup zone is already created for this as well. So with that, the domain configuration is completed, right? There's nothing much to configure with domain, so that's a pretty very simple Active Directory domain controller installation. And of course, you can go back to Active Directory services and you can create users and you can do various things here, right? So if you go under users, you can create users under users, or you can create an organizational unit. If you go down there, you can create an organizational unit, say staff, right? So you can put an organizational unit under the staffs. You can create another organizational, that's called nested organizational unit, right? So I can say IT, I can create another organizational unit called marketing, right? So marketing, right? Then we can create users under each organizational unit. So you can go and create a user called user, put a password for your user. You have options here whether the user password must be changed or not at the first login. In my case, I don't want the user to change the password, so I'll leave this. Same way under here, you can create another user called, sorry, you can create a new user. Sarah. So create a user, give a password for the user, right, and make sure that user cannot change the password as well. So now we have got users under both organization units. I'm not going to use the users, these are default users, so I'm not going to touch here. So you can create groups if you want. You can go and create groups here, right? So various options are here, so we will go and see one by one later on. So that's all for the domain controller part, right? Hope you enjoyed.